Hello, my name is Anna Wurzer. I have been doing research for the last 2 semesters with Dr. Nikki Hansel, and today at the SURF presentation, I will be presenting it to you. A group of us started on this research last fall as a part of our research methods class. In research methods, we were able to focus on this question for the first time, really analyzing it in different ways, as you will see later on in the video. Our study today is called The Relationship Between Attachment Styles, Anxiety Sensitivity, and Environmental Empathy. There are many different relationships that we had to evaluate, such as the relationship between the variables of attachment styles, anxiety sensitivity, and environmental empathy. Anxiety sensitivity was defined in a study by McNally in 2002 as that one with anxiety may dread stressful situations before the event occurs, causing avoidance behavior in anticipation of anxious sensations. Many studies have been done on attachment and normal anxiety, but we chose anxiety sensitivity specifically because it varies from normal anxiety and enters a whole new realm of research that has not previously been done with attachment styles. We also looked at environmental empathy. We chose this measure because we were very interested in studying whether or not attachment style is related to an individual's environmental empathy. Environmental empathy, also known as environmental sensitivity, is referred to in a study by McKnight that was done in 2010 as how in tune a human is to the issues in the world around them pertaining to climate change, deforestation, and other naturalistic topics. Since the environment is a big topic of discussion currently in our world, we thought that this would be a pertinent element to add into our study in order to see if there's a correlation with attachment style. We found relationships between some of these variables. One study showed that high school adjustment in males has been related to higher rates of environmental empathy. Since high school adjustment is typically correlated with some anxiety and anxiety sensitivity, we thought that this might lead to a relationship between the two variables. So we decided to take the research further and investigate it. We also found that there had been a relationship between other variables, such as attachment style and empathy. In previous studies, a positive correlation between secure attachment style and strong empathy, especially within the subset of empathetic concern, has been found. This is something that could be pertinent to our research because though we're looking at environmental empathy specifically, any type of relationship with empathy and attachment style suggests that this could also extend to environmental empathy. We also looked at the relationship between having an insecure attachment style and having a higher risk of having an anxiety disorder. As I mentioned earlier, this relationship has already been developed. This was part of the reason why we decided to go with anxiety sensitivity instead of just normal anxiety. Anxiety sensitivity is more specific. We thought it might have a correlation to environmental empathy since it has to do with how sensitive you are to certain topics, such as environmental topics and environmental empathy. And we thought that it would bring a new line of research into play when it comes to attachment styles. Now let's go into the methods of everything, including the measurements that we used, participants, and the procedure. We used many different measurements throughout this. We used the Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. This was used to measure environmental empathy. There is a subcategory of this that talks specifically about environmental empathy and how an individual feels towards environmental empathy itself. We also used the Anxiety Sensitivity Index, also known as the ASI-3. This index specifically focused on how individuals experience anxiety sensitivity in their everyday life. And all of the questions were aimed at anxiety sensitivity specifically, not just normal anxiety. We also used the revised adult attachment scale to measure insecure and secure relationship styles. This also had a subcategory of the insecure relationships, which were close, depend, and anxiety. We had 28 Carroll College general psychology students participate in this study, and all of them were 18 years or older. There was no discrimination based on gender, race, religion, or ethnicity. For the procedure, we had all students sign up on a page that was posted in the general psychology department. When they signed up on that page, we sent them an email confirming the time and where we would be doing the testing. Participants when they arrived, were asked to complete surveys within 30 minutes in a quiet room. All students were read a debriefing script and given the opportunity to withdraw after completing the surveys in order to maintain the ethical viability of this study. Everyone also signed a consent form in order to show that they were all consenting to the process of this study and that they were willing to have their information be used anonymously in this study to gather our results. So let's move on to our results. There are many different results that we found from this. So as you can see here, we found that there were differences in some of the attachment styles related with the anxiety sensitivity score. The insecure depend attachment style was the lowest out of all of them by far. The secure attachment style was after that, and then the insecure close and insecure anxiety attachment styles were about equal at the highest levels there. However, there was not a statistically significant correlation to these numbers. We also looked at the correlation between environmental empathy and anxiety sensitivity. We found that there was no statistically significant correlation between environmental empathy and anxiety sensitivity. The general trend was that the Anxiety Sensitivity Index score was negatively correlated with the environmental empathy score, but these results were not statistically significant, as I mentioned earlier. We did find a statistically significant correlation between the total attachment score and anxiety sensitivity. As you can see here, the total attachment score was positively correlated with the Anxiety Sensitivity Index score, showing that as anxiety sensitivity increases, so does the total attachment score. Let's look into the conclusions that we can draw based on these results. The relationship between anxiety sensitivity and environmental empathy can be analyzed throughout these results. Unfortunately, there was no significant correlation between the two that we found in our study. No previous literature suggests that there is a direct relationship between anxiety sensitivity and environmental empathy, as this is a new and emerging field of study. Because of this, we didn't know what we would find with these results, and it turned out that there was not actually a correlation here. We are looking into further research. College adjustment could be a direction for further research, as previous literature indicates that high school adjustment in males is correlated to higher environmental empathy overall. Because high school adjustment could be a sign of higher anxiety between both males and females, we have thought about testing this on the college level to see how college adjustment is related to environmental empathy. We might get different results with that. We also looked at the relationship between attachment and anxiety sensitivity. We found a significant correlation between overall attachment score and anxiety sensitivity. There was variation within anxiety in the insecure depend group as well. So that was something that we found within our results. These findings are consistent with previous research that suggests there is a relationship between attachment style and anxiety disorders. This just extends it further so that we show that there's also a relationship between attachment style and anxiety sensitivity. There are many different impacts of this study potentially. In our changing world where climate change is constantly occurring, there needs to be more research into environmental empathy and how we can support our environment. This was one of the primary reasons for our research, and we want to keep delving into it to see how environmental empathy is related to anxiety sensitivity and attachment styles. There were many different limitations of this study that we hope to improve upon in the future. Our sample size was relatively small, given many other studies. We would like to increase that in the future so that we have more participants, which will give us more accurate representation of the data and of the relationships between these variables. There's also limited previous research into environmental empathy. As the field evolves, we will have more research on environmental empathy, so hopefully we will have more research to base ours off of and a greater understanding of how we should conduct our research in order to get the most accurate results possible. The surveys we used also could be adjusted in a few ways. The survey that measured attachment style didn't focus on the specific groups that are usually used, such as anxious avoidant or anxious ambivalent and secure attachment styles. So adding in those could be another thing that we did in order to make sure that our results were accurate and clear and easy to interpret. We also used a short questionnaire for the environmental empathy measure. So expanding this out to a more updated, larger questionnaire could help us to get more results. For future research, we're looking at changing some of these ideas, such as updating our surveys in order to make sure that our surveys are accurately measuring what we want them to. More specifically, we want to update our surveys that are related to environmental empathy, because that was the one that was extremely short and that we want to make sure we're really getting at that point correctly. We also are interested in distributing surveys via Moodle. This could help us with our participant number because it's easier to access a larger number of participants. Being able to do it online is a much easier way to be able to finish the surveys and get a lot of results very quickly. We are also hoping to access a larger participant pool through this by going online, because we'll be able to send out the email to more people and hopefully expand beyond just the general psychology population. Finally, I would like to acknowledge everyone who took part in this study. I mentioned at the beginning that we started out as a larger group in the research methods class. Thank you to Julie Turman, Molly McDermott, Allison Barnes, and Bridget Hughes for all of your work on this. Especially thank you to Bridget Hughes for working on it this semester in order to try to further some of this research. Thank you to Dr. Nikki Hansel. None of this would have been possible without all of your support throughout this process. Thank you for constantly guiding us throughout this process and being a mentor to each and every one of us. If there are any questions on this research or this presentation in general, feel free to contact me. I would love to answer any of your questions or listen to any comments that you have about this presentation. Thank you so much for coming to this presentation.